Al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav Al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Bless us with peace. Bring us to a world where we can all live as one. We stand here weak, hoping you will save us from the turmoil that's begun. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Bless us with peace. Lead us to a world where people will not live in fear. Let love increase. Make this place so holy that the hate will disappear. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. La la la, la 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 la, la la la.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom Rav,
Please take a moment right now and silence your.
Tasim Le'olam.
Draw your attention to several safety features we have here at Temple of Israel. You can take a moment and notice the red or green exit lights over the doors currently. They're located at each side of this bima. The social hall and the
אני מאמין באמונה שלמה. אני מאמינה באמונה שלמה. I believe in the sun, even when it's not.
Shabbat Shalom. Cantor Paul is, sailing someplace on his ship. We are going to begin in our service this evening with Shalom Aleichem, which you will find on page 24 of your Siddur. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Moachem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei HaMlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Machuni L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei HaMlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Seitchem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Last time. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei HaMlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Let's turn back in our books to page 2 as we rise and bless our Shabbat lights. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. You may be seated. We turn to pages 20 and 21. And we take a moment to reflect on our week, to go back to the end of last Shabbat, pause a moment on each day, its blessings and its challenges, Hazarat HaShavua, review of the week. We'll sing together verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. We get to verse 9, I'll invite you to rise and face the doors from which we enter to welcome Shabbat and the Nishama Yetera, the extra presence, soulfulness that travels with us during Shabbat into the congregation and into our hearts. For those who are joining us from home, I invite you to turn towards the doorways of your homes. Lecha Dodi 2021. Lecha lecha dodi likrat likrat kala penei penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi likrat likrat kala penei penei Shabbat nekabela. La 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 lecha dodi likrat likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi likrat kala penei penei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad Hishmianu el hamyuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad L'shem u'tiferet v'litchila la 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 lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi likrat likrat kala penei penei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki hi mekor haberacha merosh mikedem nesucha sof ma'aseh b'machshava tchila la 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 lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi likrat likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Number 5. Hit'oreri ki va'orech u'mi'ori uri shir daberi kevod Adonai alayich nigla la 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 lecha dodi likrat likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi likrat likrat kala penei penei Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom ateret ba'ala gam b'simcha u'b'sola toch emunei am segula. Boi chala ya la 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 lecha dodi likrat likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi likrat likrat kala penei penei Shabbat nekabela. La 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 lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi likrat likrat kala penei penei Shabbat nekabela. We're going to continue with Baruch Hu on page 28, our call to prayer. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Leolam Vaed HaMevorach HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. page 30, last 3 lines in the Hebrew. El chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed, baruch ata Adonai, hama'ariv, haravi. 34, 35, Shema Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. You may be seated. We chant together Ve'ahavta, page 36. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, v'shivtecha b'veitecha, uv'lechtecha v'aderech, uv'shochbecha, uv'kumecha, u'kshartam le'od al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha, u'chtaftam al mezuzot beitecha, Uvisharecha leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim le'Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem, Emet. On this day after Yom HaAtzmaut, I guess, Israel's Independence Day, when we think about different ways in which we've crossed through seas or experienced freedom in new ways. Micha Mocha, in light of Yom HaAtzmaut, the sea of exile or of Galut seemed to be one that, for 2,000 years meant that the Jewish people were always at the mercy of others. And there was a new vision and an opportunity for people to step into the sea and into the unknown, and we're able to move through to a different place, a different experience, and we'll talk more about the challenges of the experience of having power as well as the experiences of having powerlessness. But as we sing Micha Mocha, we're grateful for the freedom and for the opportunity to determine our own destiny. Micha Mocha, page 40. Yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 Mi chamocha bailim Adonai Mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh norat hilon Osefele Osefele Malchutcha ra'u vanecha Mokeyam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam Malchutcha ra'u vanecha Mokeyam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam Yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yai die 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 Seseli Anu ve'ameru Adonai imlo leolam leolam vaed yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yai die 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 ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 Gaal Yisrael Amen Amen Amen. We turn to Hashkivenu, page 42. So we ask the Holy One to watch over us and to protect us, to let us lie down each evening with a sense of wholeness and peace and rise up with a sense of chayim, of truly living life. Hashkivenu. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom Vehamidenu shomreinu lechayim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom Vehamidenu shomreinu lechayim Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha Ushmor tzeitenu uvoenu Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha Ushmor tzeitenu uvoenu Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom Vehamidenu shomreinu lechayim Baruch atah Adonai Haporei sukat shalom Aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim We give thanks for the Shabbat, the opportunities it gives us to reflect and to connect to each other, to our tradition, to the Holy One. Join in singing Vishamru, page 44. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti leolam, oti leolam, oti leolam. Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai, asa Adonai, et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Ve'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Uvayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash. Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Let's turn to page 46 for our Amidah. I invite everybody who can comfortably do so to please rise. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Page 48. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chastei Avot v'Imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei Bneihem, L'Ma'an Shemo B'Yava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magei. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ve'ezrat Sarah. Page 50. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechaye hakol atah, Rav lehoshia, Morid hatal, Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim. Somech noflim verofech olim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato lishenei afar, michamocha baal gevurot, umido melach, melech meimit umechayeh, umatzmiach Yeshua. V'ne'eman atah l'hachayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai mechayeh hakol. Page 52. You are holy, your name is holy. Those who are holy praise you every day. Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. Please continue silently with the words of your heart or the words of the Siddur through page 62, 63. When you're through, you may be seated.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody out here and everybody who's watching on the live stream. So the Hebrew word shalom, as many of you know, has many levels, many different kinds of meaning. It can mean hello, goodbye. It could mean peace. It can mean wholeness, completeness, even health. So it's such an important word that a few years back I decided to put together a little medley of tunes that use the word shalom in the title. And so this is what you're going to hear. It's my shalom medley. And it starts with shalom chaverim, shalom my friends, progresses to Haveinu shalom aleichem, then just shalom aleichem, and finally, Sim Shalom. So this is Shalom Medley.
Thank you so much, Dr. Polvoy. So, in Israel, they have something called Tekes HaMa'avar, a transition ceremony, because Yom HaZikaron, Israel's Memorial Day, and as soon as it ends, Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel's Independence Day, begins, right? And there's one thing that, and it's obviously a very jarring transition, but it recognizes very carefully that sacrifice has been necessary in order to have independence, right? That these are two very connected pieces. Natan Alterman wrote a poem, which I won't read today, but called The Silver Platter, right? And this talks all about the silver platter, and the children in the end, they say, we are the silver platter in which the state was delivered, right? Like, and that is, in many ways, and especially in a year, 2 years, 3 years that we come out of today, there's certainly lots of people who know loss firsthand, right, in all sorts of ways. And yet, Yom HaAtzmaut is at its core a moment of gratitude. Gratitude for the miracle that is the modern state of Israel, and it's also a moment of responsibility. Responsibility for the kind of society Israel needs to be. Because if we are honest, and our tradition actually demands honesty, love of Israel has never meant silence. It has always meant engagement. The creation of the State of Israel in 1948 is nothing short of extraordinary. When Herzl said, in 50 years we'll have a state, in 50 years there was a state, and of course Herzl couldn't have imagined, even with all of Herzl's fears of anti-Semitism, what would have happened in those intervening years. But after nearly 2,000 years of exile and persecution and longing, the Jewish people returned to sovereignty in our ancestral homeland. Hebrew was reborn as a living language. A fragile, diverse, and often fractious people built a thriving country, a democracy in one of the most complicated regions of the world. And what has grown there is remarkable. A society that absorbs immigrants from across the globe: Ethiopia, the former Soviet Union, North America, Yemen, could go on and on and on, so much of the Arab world. Each wave reshaping and enriching the culture. It's a center for innovation that has transformed medicine and agriculture and technology, a place where Jewish time structures public life, where Shabbat arrives not just in homes, but in the rhythms of a society. And perhaps most profoundly, Israel is a place where Jewish power is real, where Jews are not only subjects of history, but authors of it. That is something our ancestors could only dream of. I was in Israel at the end of January and into February for about 3 weeks. And I felt all of this really very personally. This was my second trip to Israel since October 7th, 2023. And what struck me most was not only the grief or the tension, but the resilience of the Israeli people. The quiet determination to keep living, to keep building, to keep showing up for one another. And we didn't just observe it from a distance. We encountered it up close. We spent lots of time with Israeli Reform rabbis who, in the time since October 7th, have been holding their communities together, offering pastoral care, creating spaces for grief, for prayer, for resilience. They are leading not just congregations, but entire communities through trauma. We met with Bedouin leaders and Arab Israeli leaders who spoke with honesty and courage about the additional layers of difficulty they have faced since October 7th, the fear, the suspicion, the fractures in shared society. And at the same time, they shared their commitment to building a future of coexistence, even now, even in this moment. And that was deeply moving. I visited with my favorite Arab shopkeepers in Jerusalem's Old City, who have been struggling as so few tourists are coming. and also are worried about their relatives in the West Bank, where right-wing extremists have been attacking Palestinians with very few repercussions from the Israeli government. We sat with journalists and poets, voices trying to make sense of a society that has been shaken to its core. They spoke about how Israeli identity itself is shifting, how grief, fear, solidarity, and uncertainty are all intertwined in ways that are still unfolding. What became clear is that resilience in Israel today is not simple, and it's certainly not naive optimism. It's something much deeper and more complex and more layered, a determination to keep going while carrying very real pain. But Yom HaAtzmaut is not only about celebrating what is, it's also about wrestling with what ought to be. Because embedded in Israel's founding vision, expressed in its Declaration of Independence, was a bold and beautiful promise that the state of Israel would be both Jewish and democratic, ensuring complete equality of social and political rights to all of its inhabitants, irrespective of race, religion, or sex. And that has never been simple. And today, it is under great strain. We see deep internal divisions within Israeli society over the roles of the judiciary, over the nature of democracy, over the rights of minorities, over religion and state. We see the ongoing reality of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which continues to challenge Israel's ability to fully live out its highest ideals. We see tensions between particularism and universalism, between being a state for the Jewish people and a state that fully embodies democratic equality for all. For those of us who are progressive Zionists, these tensions are not reasons to walk away. They are precisely the reasons that we need to lean in. Because Zionism is at its best and always has been a moral project. If we think of the early Zionist thinkers, not only Herzl dreaming of political refuge, but Ahad Ha'am insisting that the Jewish state must also be a spiritual and ethical center. Think of the prophetic tradition that pulses beneath it all, the insistence that power be used justly, that society be built on righteousness. We're not so far from Pesach, and we're on our way to Shavuot. We'll count the Omer a little bit later. And the Torah reminds us no fewer than 36 times, you know the heart of the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. It's not just about memory, it's about responsibility. It's about what we do with power when we have it. And that is the question Israel continues to face, that we, as Jews, that I, as a Jew who loves Israel, must continue to ask. What does it mean to build a Jewish state that reflects the deepest values of our tradition? What does it mean to hold both security and dignity, both particular identity and universal justice? What does it mean to ensure that Israel not only survives but thrives as a democracy rooted in equality and freedom? No matter what you see on TikTok, these are not easy questions, and they are not questions with quick answers. They are questions of living, breathing society, of a people still in the process of becoming. Because Israel is not finished. Israel's story is still being written. And our role, especially from afar, is not to stand at a distance in either uncritical praise or total despair. Our role is to stay connected, to stay invested, to celebrate Israel's achievements with pride, and to speak honestly about its challenges with love. Because that's what it means to be part of the Jewish people. On this Yom HaAtzmaut, we hold both truths, a deep gratitude for the miracle of Israel and a deep commitment to its future. A future that is secure, that is just, a future that reflects the very best of who we are and who we're still striving to be. So my attempt here was to give a very broad overview, very quickly, and to leave a few minutes for people who might have specific questions, because I could go into any little piece of my trip for like 40 minutes, and I don't have time to do that. So if there are particular things that are going on in Israel, I haven't touched on anything since I've been back. There's been a few things that have gone on too since then, other kinds of things. But because I can't touch on it all, I'd rather touch on what people are actually thinking about, if there are people who have questions or want me to speak about something. And I'll keep my answers brief, and at some point I'll say we're done, because we'll move on. But if people have things they'd like to hear about, I'd be happy to give my perspective, since I'm speaking to people in Israel quite often. Yes, Lori.
The elections, I'm out of touch
Okay.
as far as the elections go.
So elections need to happen by the end of October in Israel. That's the law. In Israel, often elections happen before they need to happen, either because they're made to happen by opposition, or sometimes the people who are in power decide this is a good moment to call for elections. We're up a little in the polls or whatever, and they'll call for new elections. But the latest it can be is in October. And it's a really big question. Israel, there still continues now to be a majority coalition that is, I guess, anti-Bibi, I guess is all I could say, anti-Netanyahu. Okay, that doesn't mean that that if that remains the case, that doesn't mean that you're going to have a left-wing government in Israel. Israel has not moved to the left. If anything, it's moved to the right since October 7th. But what you might get is a broader government that includes, right-wing parties like Naftali Bennett's party, and also centrist parties and other kinds of things. Hopefully a party that leaves out the most extreme elements of Ben-Gvir and Smotrich and some of these people who are, from my perspective, avowed racist in their outlooks. There's also just a piece that, it took us in the United States distance, right? It took Roosevelt dying in office for us to then say, you know what? Having somebody who can run for 4 terms, it's not good for us, right? It's not, and even if people loved Roosevelt, in hindsight, they thought it's not such a good idea to have anybody accumulate that much power, right? And there's no such rules right now in Israel, but there's certainly talk about in a post-Netanyahu world that you might get something like that says a prime minister can only serve for a certain number altogether for up to 10 years or up to whatever. They're not elected directly, so it's a little more complicated, but that's the way that that plays out. So, if you were asking my hope would be that you'd have a government without Netanyahu, and you'd have a government without Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, but you still would not have you wouldn't have a government that was making huge moves for peace with the Palestinians or anything like that. There's no real appetite for that right now in Israeli society, but you might have a government that is more willing to at least confront the very worst elements within its own society, right? The settlers who are basically, committing pogroms against, some of the Arab villages, and particularly in Area C, in the that's more complicated, but the West Bank's divided up into A, B, and C. Who has control in these areas? A is supposedly all under Palestinian control. B is Israeli security control, Palestinian civil control, and C is under Israeli control. And so especially in Area C, where there's not Palestinian governmental presence, you've seen terrible violence against Palestinians in those areas. And when the police are run by somebody who, if he wasn't in the Knesset, would probably be committing the violence himself, there aren't usually huge ramifications for these folks. The government makes all sorts of statements: this is terrible, this is awful, this is etc., but then not very much actually happens. Yeah.
What's the latest with the restrictions on the wall and framing the wall?
Yeah, so it hasn't been brought again for, all these things have to be brought for multiple readings before the Knesset. Before the Iran war started, we had, the Reform movement had started this little campaign to because they were trying to bring a law that basically said it's illegal for non-Orthodox prayer to take place at the Kotel, at the Western Wall, punishable by up to 7 years in prison. If you engage in non-Orthodox prayer, whatever that means. And then the war started, and the Reform movement and the conservative movement dropped their campaign when the war started until they brought the bill back for a reading in the Knesset. And then it felt like, even during the war, they're going to keep pushing this forward. And this is also part of coalition politics right now, which is to say they're trying, right, to keep the ultra-Orthodox parties in the government at the same time that there's no appetite to give them total draft exemptions, which is what they want, and they keep saying they're going to leave the government. So, and within Israel, right, there's not a huge reform or conservative constituency within the state of Israel, which is why the campaigns by the Reform and the conservative movement really see this as attack on all non-Orthodox folks, right? And that's what their campaign has been. So you can get secular Israelis to care about things, secular Israelis who, have never been to the wall, could care less, right? Maybe they went on a middle school field trip, but they, that's not their thing. So if the Orthodox want the wall, they let them have the wall, kind of a thing. But it becomes, well, it's the wall now, and next it's going to be, the public square in your town, and it's going to be, those other kinds of places. So that's really the internal battle that's going on there. And the court's also involved in all of these things, because part of what happened is the court had said that they had to implement their proposals. The Reform movement had just won another Supreme Court case that they hadn't been implementing any of the things they had promised at the egalitarian Kotel. So that also then pushed these people to bring these bills forward, right? So that becomes the whole part of the picture. Chuck?
Yeah, Israel seems to be losing perhaps the PR battle in Lebanon. Every day you see these terrible things that are going on, and they have nothing positive to say about Israel. Do you have any observation?
Well, I think Israel, for sure, if you look at U.S. public opinion, is losing its capital, so to speak, it's so that's certainly has lost it on the liberal side of the spectrum, and now it's losing it on the conservative side of the spectrum. Right, you're starting to see that coming apart. So I think that's true. I think Israel does you have a government. So this becomes one of the challenges that for the right-wing governments, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, which is the narrative that they will give. The very right-wing folks. This didn't used to be Netanyahu, but he's kind of bought into it in recent years with his right-wing coalition partners. Has been kind of what you have in the Haggadah. In every generation, they're going to rise up to try to destroy us. The whole world's against us, so it doesn't matter what we do. They don't like us. They all hate us. So we should just do what we want to do. That's sort of and so they do really radical. Then people like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich do really terrible stuff. Instigate terrible stuff among their followers. The world responds to it, and then they say, "See," right? And it actually feeds their own narrative, right? As that moves forward, because there's always been a narrative in part of Jewish life, which is, everybody hates us, everyone's an anti-Semite, et cetera, et cetera. And the irony is that's just the antithesis of what Zionism was supposed to be, right? Zionism is about returning the Jewish people to the family of nations, to the world, right? To those kinds of things, and that plays out in different ways. And there are plenty of voices. I'm on the WhatsApp group for Gilad Kariv, who's a member of the Democrats, that's like a coalition now. The old Labor Party and Meretz and a few other parties came together. They call themselves the Democrats. And he's also the only Reform rabbi in the Knesset. You know, if you hear him talk, he could be talking, you know, at a protest, on the floor of the Knesset at a protest rally, right? Like, you know, he's talking all the time about, you know, these kinds of things. He was wearing a kippah that had an Israeli flag and a Palestinian flag on it, and the police came and took it off his head and cut the Palestinian flag off of the kippah. And he, you know, then he said, you know, in any other country in the world, if somebody cut somebody's kippah, the Israeli government would be going crazy. The anti-Semites are cutting people's kippot, you know, they're doing these kinds of things, but, you know, if it fits them. So that becomes part of it. One more if there's any more, and then I'm going to be done. Yes, Randy.
This is a loaded question. But
Yes, they're all loaded, so it's okay.
how do you, or Israelis in general,
Yeah.
deal with the accusation of genocide against the Palestinians?
I mean, for me, I think the accusation isn't a real one. And that, you know, I think we are in a place that terms are used also politically. Like something really bad is going on, so it's genocide, right, in that way. I think the apartheid thing becomes the same, and especially when it's applied broadly, right? Because I think you could make an argument that, like, in the West Bank you have a apartheid-ish system, right? But I don't think you can make an argument that the whole country is set up that way. Doesn't mean that there's equality and everywhere, but most of that is de jure and not, you know, I mean, it's de facto and not de jure. And we have that. Most societies have that still. They're still working through. It doesn't make it, you know, an apartheid society. I think, you know, one of the challenges with genocide, and of course, accusations were brought up, there's still been no determination I mean, if you put faith in criminal courts, Israel doesn't, but if you do, there's still been, while there's been accusations and there's a potential for genocide and all those things, there's still been no verdict that has come out of the criminal courts in any way. But one of the challenges is that it takes intention, right? So again, this is where some of the most radical elements of Israeli society don't do Israelis any favors, right? From what I can see, those aren't the people making the military decisions, and that hasn't been the Israeli military policy. But if people are saying, let's just kill them all, and it's coming from a minister of government, and then people point to that, and they say, oh, look, see, there's the intention, right? And again, I don't think they really care. I mean, these particular members of Knesset don't really care about those accusations, because they'd say, well, they'll always say that about us. So I think those are the questions. I also think, though, to say that, like, you know, I think you can think that what happened in Gaza was quite horrific and terrible, and still think it's pretty complicated, right? Like, I think, you know, and you know, many of my liberal friends in Israel who were supportive of the war believed that the war could have ended a year earlier, right? And ended in the same place, right? A year earlier. And then that changes how if the war is just, right, anymore. Because if a war could be ended by other means, if you can reach the same goals by other means, then it's no longer just to continue to fight, right? So those are those things. And at the same time, to recognize it's the most difficult battlefield that we've seen, really, in world history in many ways, because most of people were underground, right, in Gaza, and that's a really terrible thing. I think there's, you talk about Lebanon, or that came up, Chuck, you asked about Lebanon. I think that, it's interesting, Israel's talking to Lebanon right now, right? They're in talks. The biggest challenge there is, I think the Lebanese don't really want Hezbollah either. There's a small group of Lebanon. There's maybe a quarter of Lebanese who do like Hezbollah, but most of them don't want Hezbollah either. But Hezbollah is more powerful than the Lebanese state, so that becomes the challenge. Israel occupies southern Lebanon again right now. For Israelis, that sounds like that would be like the U.S. going and fighting war in Vietnam, because that was Israel's Vietnam, the Lebanon War in the 80s. So it's very interesting the government doesn't talk about even a security zone, because that's what it was called there. It's called a forward defensive line or whatever that they're calling it, because it's so toxic, right? In Israeli society, they're afraid they're going to get bogged down there, right? And then it's going to be a terrible thing. And at the same time, there were rockets falling on northern Israel, right? Now most of those rockets are falling on Israeli soldiers in southern Lebanon. But how do you manage that? Those are really challenging things, and I wish I was smarter and had all the answers to that. So, all right. So I always like to say, though, on Yom HaAtzmaut, it is a time to celebrate. There's a lot of arguing to do, and we pick it up the next day, right? The day after Yom HaAtzmaut. But on Yom HaAtzmaut, we're grateful, right, for the fact that we're even able to have the argument. I think back on David Wolpe speaking at a BBYO convention a few years ago, where he was teaching at Harvard at the time, and he said, and he has this imaginary conversation with his grandfather, right? And he says, there's a lot of anti-Semitism where I'm teaching at Harvard. And his grandfather's voice says, "They let you teach at Harvard? That's amazing." And he said, "Yeah, and because the war in Israel is really creating a lot of, there's an Israel? That's fantastic," right? So I think sometimes, right, we get, there's plenty to be despair about, but there's also plenty to celebrate, and that we have to hold both of those things as we walk forward through our life. Okay, we're going to turn now to page 253. So we turn our thoughts to all of those in our lives and in our community who are in need of healing of body, of mind, or of spirit. Right in the middle of the page, 253. Mi sheberach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. We ask for blessings upon Hannah Fields Austin, Sue Toback, Garasan Lefkowitz, Helen Weinfeld, Pam Poliakoff, Kathy Blumenfeld, Brad Holland, Serena Postal, Robert Strober, Charity Raisaday, Gloria Foster, Robert Gerard, Adele Harris, Brenda Found Gerard, Jan Marcus, Al Shapiro, Robert Waldman, Judith Gratz DeLange, Deborah DeLange, Faye Bernstein, Sandra Dizengoff, Karen Nelson, Larry Gassner, Marsha Lloyd, Sharon Everett, Ellen Sopkin, Tim Nelson, Natalie Cruz, Joanne Cohen, Keaton Height, Michael Gerard, Marion Snyders, Bonnie Stead, James Stead, Michelle Weinstein, Greg Doobie, Jennifer Lewis, Chris Gacci, Dr. Chuck Lieb, Bernard Karmatz, Virginia Guzman, Neen Geffen, Seidel Walensevich, Maury Feingold, Virginia Guzman, Mark Dannenberg, Lisa Hahn, Laura Zuckerman, Alexei Steifel, Hector Martel, Ashira Barbaria, Karen Laird, Fred Laird, Jack Warshaw, Randy Scotland, and Avotenu, bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. I'd like to invite up in just a moment, but I'm going to say a word first. Jane Quatcher to share some information and words about our year-round new vision of our year-round food program, and you'll also see in the social hall when you go in information, and Judy and Jane have their friends have helped to sponsor our oneg this evening, and so turn it over to Jane to share some about our Food All Year program. Come on up.
Shabbat Shalom. The first time I went to the Lopez Urban Farm, I had to pick up with food filled to the top with food donations. A volunteer there told me that it would last about an hour, and I was devastated, all that food in an hour. So I went shopping, and I went back with more the next day, and sure enough, there was nothing left once again. Now, this isn't a big warehouse. It's like a large shipping container. And people come on foot, on bikes, pulling wagons and pushing carts. They helped unload the truck before taking what they needed and heading home. The Lopez Urban Farm on Mission Boulevard in Pomona is a special kind of place. Unlike traditional food banks, it's a working farm with miniature goats and chickens, as well as crops to harvest for anyone who needs access to fresh food. Shoppers there can choose what they want from the farm and from what they call the Pomona fridge, with no paperwork or documentation required. Many of you have seen the lines of cars on Foothill accessing a food bank that goes on about a mile sometimes. But many of the people in need in this community don't have reliable transportation, and they need to obtain their food in quantities that they can carry on foot. The farm's motto is "We can feed ourselves together," and that speaks to the organization's goal of building community and the variety of events and programs that support that goal. They have outdoor yoga. On Sundays, they have a junior farmers program. They're sponsoring an arts festival, and they have a variety of other community programs. These attributes are among the reasons that TBI has partnered with the Lopez Urban Farm for our revamped Food All Year program. The temple has done an impressive job of organizing donations to the annual High Holiday Food Drive every year, which benefits the Inland Valley Hope Partners in East Ontario, and will continue to do so. But where we have fallen short is in providing nourishment to our neighbors the rest of the year. As we noted in the Kahila, nearly 40% of children in the city of Pomona live in households without adequate access to safe and nutritious food. With its partnership with the Pomona Unified School District, Lopez Urban Farm serves Lopez Elementary School families, houseless neighbors, undocumented community members, and others who need to obtain food without barriers. I found out today they even deliver to some people who are unable to get out to get their food. Our goal now is to create a program that makes food and personal hygiene items available to those on an ongoing basis throughout the year. So how will we do this? We've created a link on the TBI website for all of us to contribute money, ideally as a recurring donation, which will be sent to the farm for them to purchase the foods that are needed most. We will also continue to place a box in the temple lobby, although today it's in the social hall, for donations of non-perishable food that will be delivered to the farm. And the relationship is not one way. There are volunteer opportunities at the farm, which will also enrich our membership, including congregants looking for meaningful ways to be involved in the community, and especially for the children and students preparing for their B'nai Mitzvot, learning the meaning of Tikkun Olam through hands-on activities. To volunteer, you can go to their website at lopezurbanfarms.com and fill out the volunteer form. They'll respond within about a week, or you can follow them on social media. So today, I had the honor of taking them a check of $1,000 to purchase food, thanks to the generosity of the TBI community. I went to the farm with my young granddaughter, and it's just a beautiful place. It has vegetables that people can harvest, such as bok choy, broccoli, cabbage, and other leafy greens. There's a butterfly garden, a flower garden, a small skateboard ramp. My granddaughter was excited to pet the goats and even to pet the chickens, which someone was carrying around under her arm. It's just a wonderful, beautiful, calming spot, and it's just a lovely place to go hang out and enjoy being outside even. Through TBI's Food All Year program, together we can support this unique place and the people it serves every day. Please consider donating to this fund through the donations tab on the website or with your memorials and tributes, where you will need to add a note that it's for food all year. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom. I should add that if you have questions about it, you can see me and Judy in the social hall.
And I was going to add a thank you to Jane and to Judy for taking this project on and putting your energy and time and talents into it. So appreciate that. All right, we're going to turn now to to the place that I don't have a page number written down, which I should have done, but I will find it momentarily. Counting the Omer. It is page 278. I am ready to fulfill the mitzvah of counting the Omer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al tzvirat haomer. We give praise to you, God, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to count the Omer. Hayom shlosha ve'esrim yom shehem shlosha shavuot v'shnei yamim la'omer. Today is the 23rd day, which is 3 weeks and 2 days of the Omer. And now we continue with, I invite Candy to come forward and share some announcements, and then we'll move to the conclusion of our service.
Shabbat Shalom. On behalf of your Board of Trustees, we welcome you to this beautiful Shabbat service. Todah Rabbah to Rabbi Kupitz for a really interesting discussion this evening, and to Randy Polovoy for his beautiful music. We also wish to thank Joachim Gratz for bringing tonight's Shabbat service to those online. Appreciation also to Jane Quatcher for raising our awareness of the Food All Year program. Thank you to tonight's greeters, Kylie Sykes, Vicki Hollander, Phyllis Blackie, Marissa Nicely, and Judy Rose. A few announcements. More details about these and other programs can be found in your Kehillah, weekly Tikkiah, or online at tbipomona.org. Torah study is online at 9:30 tomorrow morning, led by Rabbi Kupitz. You will find the link in this week's Tikkiah. Next Sunday morning, May the 3rd at 9 a.m., Brotherhood will host our own Liron Canetti, who will be discussing his expertise in cybersecurity. Sunday afternoon, May 17th at 3 p.m., Temple Beth Israel is pleased to present a special musical afternoon featuring our own Dr. Randy Polovoy in celebration of his 30 years as our temple pianist. Dr. Polavoy will present works by Chopin, Litz, Copland, and Gershwin. A thoughtful way to become a permanent part of Temple Beth Israel is by purchasing a legacy brick. Honor someone special in your life or celebrate a meaningful milestone. Each brick purchased is a lasting tribute and supports the future of our community. The first bricks will be installed before the High Holy Days. Those bricks will be those purchased by June the 1st. So please consider your purchase in the next couple of weeks to be part of that initial installation of bricks. And please mark your calendars now for Saturday evening, June the 6th. Come to the quintessential thriller, Best Laid Plans murder mystery at the estate of Sir Warren Peace. With guidance from professional actors, guests will bribe suspects for clues and uncover the truth about the unhinged guest among you to reveal who done it. Shabbat Shalom.
So I have one more announcement to add. So many of you out here share my concern about much of what's been happening with immigration in this country, and draconian enforcement of ICE. There's a public hearing on May 2nd hosted by Mayor Tim Sandoval in the city of Pomona. And it's a Saturday at 10 a.m. I won't be there. I'll be doing Torah study. But I do want to make it available for people who might go. The location only is going to be released when people register. I can send people registration links if you're interested because of security concerns for the event. Several community organizations are sponsoring, along with the Mayor's Task Force, and including ICON, the Inland Communities Organizing Network, of which TBI is a part and is providing logistical and behind-the-scenes support. They are also looking for volunteers. So if people need they need people to help with direction and registering people and parking and stuff like that. So all of those things, if you want information on any of that, talk to me, or she's not here today, but Catherine Cruey also has information about all of that. Again, Saturday morning, May 2nd, somewhere in downtown Pomona, and they will let you know where that is, if that's something that you're able to participate in. Just one correction to Candy's thing. I'm not leading Torah study tomorrow. It's being led by one of the Torah study members, because I have a bat mitzvah in Oakland I'm attending, which means I have a 6 a.m. flight to Oakland tomorrow, so I can go to the bat mitzvah, and then a 6 a.m. flight back Sunday morning so that I can go to Beit Sefer. So those are early flights that, I don't know, maybe Sunday I'll go to bed at 6 o'clock or something. I don't know. We'll see as that goes. All right, so page 282, Aleinu L'Shabeach. Please rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula leotzer bereshit, shelo asanu kigoye haratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, vanachnu korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Page 287. ונאמר והיה אדוני
Lemelech al kol haaretz, bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad. You may be seated. Take a moment to remember those who have been important in our lives and have left this earth, those who have died in recent days or at this time in years past. Remember the recent deaths of Dolores D. Morton, mother of Kelly Morton, of Glenn Goodwin, husband of Rose Ash. Remember the Yortzites, the anniversaries of the deaths of Herb Andrew, Lillian Avedon, Margalit Ben-Zakane, Francis Brennan, Anna Cohen, Uri Cohen, Jules Diamond, Michael Diamond, Irving Elhai, Sarah Elhai, Edward Fleischman, Rose Glassman, Lottie Goldman, Martha Handelman, Steve Horwitz, Stella Kelber, Alec Nell, Norman Lewis, Murray Marcus, Mark Meckler, Helen Miller, Nisim Moshe Mocho, Ruth Delahant Maiq, Gordon William Bill Neal, Anna Projector, Celia Gohl Rochester, Arnold Roth, Marvin Salzberg, Leona Ruth Schall, Florence Sheps, Bruce Schneider, Jean Minna Simon, Peter Schneiders Baker, Pearl Judith Steinberger, Miriam Waller Sudar, Isaac Vatkin, Teresa Vatkin, Rita Warshaw, and Toby Wolfson. If you're remembering somebody on the Shabbat, would like to add their name to those I've listed or restate a name I've listed, please feel free to do so as I come by your row.
Nanette Clark. John J. Borer Jr. John Cobb.
If you're in a time of mourning or observing a Yortzeit on the Shabbat, I invite you to rise. And I invite the rest of the congregation, if it's your custom, to rise in embrace and support of those who mourn. Again, page 294. Yitgadal, Yitgadash, Shmei Rabbah, B'yalma divrach hirute, v'yamlich machute, v'chayachon v'yomachon, uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agalau v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam olomei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, Shmei d'kudusha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, Ta'amiran bi alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for a blessing. We're going to conclude this evening on page 374 with after this week of Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaAtzmaut with Hatikva. Bottom of page 374. Kolot baleva penima nefesh Yehudi homia ulfate mizrach kadim am chofshi be'artzeinu Eretz Zion v'Yerushalayim. For those who joined us online, thank you for being with us. Shabbat Shalom. For everybody in the social hall, please join us. For everybody in the social hall. For everybody in the sanctuary, please join us in the social hall. For Kiddush, Motzi, refreshments. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.